It's exciting. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Shechionu v'Kimono v'Giyonu l'Zman Hazeh. That we can sit together and have breakfast together and start our Sunday like we were doing for a while. Baruch Hashem, to start the week in the right foot. And it's a mazel that it's the first Sunday in Chodesh Elul. And it's L'Zecha Nishmas Uri's father, who's today's his yahrzeit. What's your father's name?
Yamin ben Naftali.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So I have someone texted me this week, a Bochrul, a Yira Shamayim, that he's learning, and then he's in camp now, and they heard a shir, and in the shir, the Rebbe said that you can't answer Davash B'Kedusha between Tefillin Shel Yad and Tefillin Shel Rosh. And the Bochrul said he remembered learning otherwise. So he wanted to know, Im Emes Nochen Adover. He learned otherwise. So it's a good question. It happens to be shaykh to this week's parsha. And we say that there is Yoreh V'Racha Leivov. So who's Yoreh V'Racha Leivov? Rabbi Akiva says is Pasha scared. He's scared when he sees blood, he sees a sword. Rabbi Akiva Lili said that there's Yoreh Maveda Shebeyoder. But the emphasis, the two pshatim are not so different. We find that we had once a Gemara in Brochus that we learned together. At the end of Brochus, the Gemara says that one of the Meroim saw that his Talmud was trembling. So he says, he's trembling, Shema Mino, that he has a chait. Because a person that's clean of chatoim does not have fear in his heart. He has no fear in his heart. Teva, that's the way it's begashmi, is that Ayid, that is cleansed of chatoim, is fearless. It's fearless. So really the two pshatim are the same. If a person is Yoreh Ma'aveda Shebiyodoi, is because of that, then he's pashat scared when he sees blood and he sees a sword. By the way, there's a Yom Yom that in the 40 days, we're talking in Elul is a Ira Miklat, 40 days of protection that Eid runs into Elul. So there's the takon of the Baal Shem Tov to say 3 kapitlach every day and to finish off by Ne'ilah with 9 kapitlach. Just mentioning it, it's at the beginning of Elul. So sometimes when you realize that you're doing it, it's already the end of El, you have to make up. But if you start today, 3 kapitlach, today was Zayin Chestes, it's not so bad. So the Gemara says in Menachos, what's the Aveda? It's a Soch ben Tefillah l'Tefillah. What's the grace of Aveda? Soch ben Tefillah l'Tefillah. He spoke between Tefillin Shel Yad and Tefillin Shel Rosh. There's a sugya in the Gemara there talks about about Soch ben Tefillah l'Tefillah. There's a machlokes that he's showing him what's going on. What's the Soch ben Tefillah l'Tefillah? This brings us to the machlokes of the Minig Ashkenaz and Sfarad, how you make a bracha on film. Why am I talking about this? Because this is going to be negate to understand about the hefsek. So the Alter Rebbe writes in his siddur that Alter Rebbe writes, if you have your phone and you got the email from Peretz, you could open up your phone and you have all the Mara Mekoimis. Sorry, in the future I'll try to go back to Chadish Yemein Keked and print it out on the sheet. But if you have a phone, you can see it on the phone. So the first Mara Mokim is the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch. In the back is a Piski Siddur. He says, Afapi Kain im Shama Kadesh Kedusha Baruchu Oy Kedusha Bein Tefillin Shel Yad LeTefillin Shel Rosh Muter LaHafzek LaAnes Im Matziber Afapi Shegoyim Bracha Chedes Al Shel Rosh VaOsa Ligren Bracha Sheina Tzricha. You're not allowed. That's the Aveda from Soch Ben Tefillah LeTefillah. You're causing a Bracha Sheina Tzricha. You're causing Hashem's name to be said for no purpose. However, if a person hears Kaddish, Borchu, or Kedusha, any Dovish, what's called a Dovish Kedusha, he's allowed to answer and then make another bracha in the Tefillin Shel Rosh. Why? Because so the Alter Rebbe says that it's kedai to be soimech on that other opinion to answer a davish begedusha. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes. It's interesting that there's sort of a machlokes between, it seems to me, between the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe. The Rebbe writes in a letter to Rebbe Avram Hersh to give an Ayid in Yerushalayim, Rebbe Avram Hersh Klein. Mamish Ayid, if you wanted to know, he knew Shulchan Aruch with the Agos Hagro, word for word, Kimat. The Yerushalmi Yid. And I don't know. I know his children. Alle gelungene Kinder. One of his children was my Rosh Yeshiva. Yeah. He was sure. I remember his son. I was learning it as he was my Rosh Yeshiva. So he was telling us about his father that he was such an oni ve'evian. When they would come home, he brought home once an orange. Brought home an orange, and he peeled the orange and gave every one of the kids a piece of orange. It's a simcha. So he wasn't worried about his parnasa, but he was worried, what's the deal? Can the Alter Rebbe over here? The Alter Rebbe writes in the beginning, it's muter lahafsik. And then it says, kedai, lismach alem shaloi levatel, mani is dovish b'kedusha. So lepoil, what should I do? Yeah, the answer to tadovish b'kedusha, not stama shahak olim b'dvori. It's something which tadovish b'kedusha, like kaddish, baruch, kedusha. So, should you go do it or not? So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, yes, you should, because that's what the Alter Rebbe is writing at the end. So the Rebbe answered him, yes, that you should stop and say Amen. You should stop and say Amen. Again, not an Amen for Shahak Limit any Amen which are Davish Gedusha, which is Baruch Hu, Kaddish, Kedusha, Amen after Kela Kodesh, Amen after Shema Kerleinu, whatever is in Simon Sam above, whatever is considered a Davish Gedusha. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. It's not called a Davish Gedusha. So now, how come this Rebbe had gesagt anders? The Shulchan Aruch says it differently. It's mashma by hate. But why? So I want to explain a very simple thing. According to the depends how you make your bracha. According to Minik Chabad, we make like the Svardim. It's machlokes rishonim. What does it mean when there has to be a separate bracha, tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh? The Minik Svarad is that like the rishonim who hold that really you're supposed to make one bracha. If you spoke, then you'll make a second bracha. You make one bracha l'niach tefillin, and you have a mind for the shorosh, and you don't make any hefsek. And if you spoke in the middle, then you make a separate bracha. But the Ashkenazim are not that way. Ashkenazim say two brachas, and after the second bracha say Baruch Shem, because maybe they said a bracha Shem and tzricha. If they spoke in the middle, the net result is they're going to make three brachas, the Ashkenazim, because they hold like the Rishonim that the tefillin shel rosh need a separate bracha. So if they spoke in between tefillin shel yad tefillin shel rosh, they're going to make two brachas, l'niach tefillin and al mitzvahs tefillin.
So if I do Ashkenaz. So if I make a linear tefillin and someone, whatever.
Then you have to make two brachas. Your net result is you made three brachas.
Get on the tefillin and get in.
Yeah, your net result is three brachas.
That's
So now let me explain. That's why this halacha that the Alter Rebbe says that you should be mafsik. I'm telling you my pshat that I think. The Alter Rebbe didn't change it. In the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe says not to stop and say Kaddish Kedusha, not to be mafsik. Why? He didn't change his mind. In the Shulchan Aruch, he paskin like Minik Ashkenaz. He brings Minik Sfarad at the end. He says La Halacha, because everything in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch is Minik Ashkenaz. In the Siddur, everything is Minik Sfarad. So in the Shulchan Aruch, he goes barichas explaining what's the halacha and the geyev for the people that's following his Shulchan Aruch. Then he mentions Bekitzer, the shitta of the Beis Yosef. But he doesn't go into the details. But in the first opinion, he says you're not allowed to make a hefsek between tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, because you're going to end up with a bracha she'ein tzricha. Because you're going to end up with saying three brachas. You're going to say l'niach tefillin, and a second time l'niach tefillin, and again, you're going to end up with an extra bracha.
That's only for Ashkenaz.
Well, that's why in the Siddur, where he says that the Chabad minig is like the Sfardim, to say only one bracha. So if you're going to speak in between tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, what's going to be the net result? How much brachas are you going to have? Two. Nish gefährlich. The other opinion holds that you should always have two brachas. So the net result is nish gefährlich. If you're always doing one bracha, so you're going to give minik svarat. Today you did two brachas, minik Ashkenaz. Okay, the Ashkenazim are not that bad. But if you do Kaminig Ashkenaz, that you're always making two brachas, if you're going to be mafsik today, you're going to have to make three brachas. No, three brachas shein is good. That's already a bracha shein tzricha. L'chol day is the bracha shein tzricha. So this is, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a complicated mathematics. But Sadova Posh, again, according to the Alter Rebbe, the Siddur says that you should answer Dava Shebekidusha. Shulchan Aruch says it should not. And as I said, it's a Dava Poshet. Why? He didn't change his mind. In the Shulchan Aruch, he was talking go according to Minig Ashkenaz. So according to the Minig Ashkenaz, if you're going to talk between the Tefillin Shel Yad and Tefillin Shel Rosh, you're going to say Amen or Baruch Hu. The net result is you're going to say 3 brachas. So you said L'chol Hadays, you said a bracha she'eina tzricha. So therefore, you shouldn't stop and say Baruch Hu. But according to the Minig Sfarad, which Chabad does the Minig Sfarad, I think most Chassidim do it that way, right? That they make only 1 bracha. So today you're going to say Baruch Hu, you're going to end up with a net resulting 2 brachas. It's gefährlich. Meint hat man getan wie die Ashkenazim. No, but I'm not talking those. I'm talking about this thing. Chassidim, they make one bracha, 2 brachas on film. 2 brachas? Yeah? They make 2? Okay, so Chabad does Kaminik Svarad. They make 1 bracha. Chabad makes 1 bracha. So, just laniach film. So you don't know, you're not mafsik. You're not mafsik. If you're already mafsik, accidentally, so then you would say 3 brachas. You'd say, so you end up saying on the Shailos again, laniach film, because you made a hefsek now, because you made the yad, and then you answered Baruch. So then before you put on the Shailos, you say 2 brachas. So the net result is that you said 3 brachas. Not make a hefsek. Not make a hefsek. Very clear. If you do minig Ashkenaz, that you usually make 2 brachas, so today, if you're going to be mafsik, you're going to have to make 3 brachas. So don't do it. It's a bracha she'eina tzricha. But if you do minig Sfarad for Sfardim or Chabad, who they lechatchila only do 1 bracha. So today, if you're going to say Baruch Hu, nish gefährlich. So today you did like the Ashkenazim, and that result you'll say 2 brachas. Not so bad to do like the Ashkenazim one day. But if you do minig Ashkenazim and you're always doing 2 brachas, today you're going to do 3. That's very bad. You shouldn't do that. So Mela Nishkin Stira, between what the Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch and the Siddur. The Shulchan Aruch is writing for Ashkenazim, or anyone that does minig Ashkenazim. So you're always making 2 brachas. Now you're going to be mafsik and end up with 3 brachas. It's a bracha she'eina tzricha. It's a terrible thing. That's sach ben tefillah tefillah.
I'm going to try. Why is Baruch Hu not considered a Davar Shebekidusha?
It is Davar Shebekidusha. But since you made a hefsek now, you have to make a new bracha. And the minig Ashkenaz is like the Rishonim, the Rosh, and Tosfos, who holds that the Tefillin Shel Rosh deserves 2 brachas.
Right, yeah.
Deserves 2 brachas. The only reason why you're only making 1 bracha is because you had in mind when you make the Tefillin Shel Yad that bracha should be also for Tefillin Shel Rosh. But if you made a hefsek, now the Shel Rosh itself needs 2 brachas, according to the Rosh, and that's what the Ashkenazim do. So if you said Baruch Hu in between Tefillin Shel Yad and Shel Rosh, your net result is you said 3 brachas. According to Sfardim, you should answer, and because today you'll be an Ashkenazi, but for the Ashkenazim should not answer, because what are you today? What are you doing? The net result is that you're going to end up with 3 brachas. No one says you should do 3 brachas.
Those who say you only make 1 bracha, those who say you only make 1 bracha, it's not like you say because you had in mind that it should go for the Shel Rosh also. It's because they hold it both the Tefillin, Shel Yad and Shel Rosh, they're both the 1 mitzvah. Whereas the others hold that each one is a separate mitzvah. And among the Monei mitzvot.
I disagree. But anyway, it doesn't make a difference to my cheshbon that I'm saying now. It makes no difference. What's the difference? Lamaisa, whatever I said now is not going to change with what you're saying.
Okay, and also one interesting thing that it seems that both of these minhagim were already found in the time of Chazal, because there are 2 ma'amorim, one in Masechet Menachot and one in Brachot, and each one says one way and one says the other way. So apparently both minhagim are already from Chazal.
I hear. Similar to the Lamachloikis of Rashi and Abenu Tam, that they say that it was very nice, very nice. Okay, because otherwise, like, when you ask your father, what did your father do? It's like all that akasha. Okay. Yes, yeah. There's also a Kabbalah, there's a reason for it. Right, why? Because we don't know. Which Minig Ashkenaz is saying afterwards Baruch Shem, because maybe it's the Minig Sfarad is right. So maybe I said Bracha She'eina Tzricha. Maybe Mamash Bracha She'eina V'Vatola. V'Vatola means for no reason. That's too strong of a word to say. Ashkenazim Tonazach. Can't say it. We're saying Baruch Shem. You're saying, I'm not saying. You're saying Baruch Shem because maybe it's a Baruch Shem at Tzricha. It's not as bad. Baruch Allah. Allah. That could be a bracha. That could be. Oh, well, that could be a bracha levatol. It's negligence. Who asked you? It's gedacht trachten. Here, what do you mean? Who tells you? I don't know. I'm Ashkenazi. I was born to Ashkenaz father and mother, and so my father told me to do. They can't tell me it's a bracha levatol. It's a bracha shein at tzricha. You have to be careful with what you say. Not chas v'shom that all the Ashkenazim are saying a bracha levatol every morning. Yes, yeah. According to Ashkenazim, yes, sure. If a person can't put on the tefillin shel yad, so if he's Ashkenazi on the tefillin shel rosh, he makes two brachas. If he's Sfardi or Chabad, on the tefillin shel rosh, he only waits one bracha. Yeah. Right. So if a person chas v'shalom, his hand is not moving, or chas v'shalom, my father had yechidus when he was bar mitzvah, so the Rebbe used to give a test to the years. Those years that Rebbe used to give a, yeah, I'm born in Lamed Gimel, so my father's born Tovshin Vov, so his bar mitzvah is in the Chops, yeah. So the Rebbe asked them a Shaila. What happened? The Rebbe asked, Tefillin Shalosh is one mitzvah, two mitzvahs. So the Rebbe asked him, what happens if a person chas v'shalom doesn't have a hand? Does he put on tefillin shalosh? So he said, yeah, it's a separate mitzvah, you put on shalosh. The Rebbe said, how about if it's the other way around? And the Rebbe smiled. Then it's more complicated. No, because nishkeferlach, it's not a hefsek. Because that's not called, because he has a suffix in his two hands, so it's not called. That's not called a hefsek. Because it's minyan abroch. It's like a person that said nu melach. He said hamoitz, and then he said nu melach. It's not a hefsek.
The idea of a hefsek is different from the idea of Sephardim and Chabad. Because for Sephardim and Chabad, it's one bracha. And you have to fill it. If you're in the middle of something and you hear whatever, you not necessarily davar b'kedusha, your child comes in and you have to talk to him for a second. It's different for then. It's in the middle of one bracha. You don't have to say. In Ashkenazim, it's different. It's two separate brachas, but it's considered one bracha in terms of
the Ashkenazim hold that the tefillin shalosh deserves two brachas.
My question is, how is it in terms of practical application for non-double?
Obviously, it's also even for the minik sfarad because you could have that you're going to a bracha sheina tzricha because you could at any time you could do two things with one bracha and you make two brachas. You have two apples and you could be patted it with one bracha and you decided to make two brachas. It's called a bracha sheina tzricha. So it's not a bracha levatola, but if I eat one apple and I make eight and then a second apple, another eight, that's not a bracha levatola, but it's a bracha sheina tzricha. So for minik sfarad, where you could have in mind the tefillin shalosh doesn't need a special bracha, and you can have in mind that laniach tefillin should be yotze both. And now you spoke in the middle, we're going on bracha sheina tzricha. But when you said baruch in the middle, so you're saying, listen, today you decided to be an Ashkenazi. Why did you decide to be Ashkenazi today? Because it's a dovah shebegedusha. That's sort of the walking between the raindrops. That's the hachra of the Alter Rebbe.
Say a mitzvah is laniach.
No. After if you spoke,
if you're Sfardi,
no, you'll make a chabad and you'll make al mitzvahs tefillin afterwards.
We never say that.
Yes. Because the camp Rebbe was not a Chabad camp, so he makes two brachas. So he's going like the Alter Rebbe or like the poskim Ashkenazim. So it doesn't make sense to stop in the middle. For Ashkenazi, it doesn't make sense to stop for baruch in the middle. So he was right. They're both right. The Bocher was right and the Rebbe was right. That's fine. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Yes. You wouldn't say Baruch Shem now. You wouldn't say now Baruch Shem. You wouldn't say Baruch Shem. Yeah. Now I'm Ashkenazi without apologizing. Okay. Good. Nachamal. Machen klar. I'm saying it a 10th time just because it's Nagei Lamaisa. Those that follow Minig Ashkenaz and they always make 2 brachas, if they're going to be mafsek today between Tfilin Shel Yad and Tfilin Shel Rosh and say Baruch Hu, they're going to end up saying 3 brachas. 3 brachas and you're not allowed to do that. So you don't make any hefsek. But those that Sfardim or Minig Chabad that only make 1 bracha, so if you're going to be mafsek today, it's nicht gefährlich. You're going to be like Ashkenazi and make 2 brachas. So you should make a hefsek and say Baruch Hu or any dovish b'kedusha. Okay. A Shailos that someone asked, he gives some meiser, and he gives that for tzedakah, and he's now the meiser said, you know what, you can give it a credit card. Meisters like, even though they're paying a little bit on the credit card, but they like to have your credit card, automatic payments. They like it. Machaya. It's there. It's it's very good. So, but now his interesting Shaila, the person asked me, L'choida, what's happening over here is that he's getting mileage. He's getting mileage. So he was wondering if it's appropriate or a pialoch it's mutter. He's getting mileage. So basically, the mileage. That's what he's asking. That's what the person is asking. He's not asking a psaga. He's asking a shayla. Okay, so let me explain. I agree that everyone is. Someone asks a shayla, I have to answer. So everyone's getting stuck again. I think it's fine because you can give COVID. COVID you can give, but this is why the svod of not is that the din is that you're not allowed to give a kohen or a levi or oni when you give the matnas aniyim, which ma'aseh sofim is like according to many opinions, you're not allowed to get a kickback. You're not allowed to give the kohen the ma'aseh, and that's the way that I'm a passes the ma'aseh. Machloikis, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yochanan, Shalmi, Ish Kadosh, you're not allowed to get a kickback. That that's a good thing. But a third party could give a kickback, but not the oni is not allowed to give you a kickback. The kohen, the levi is not allowed to give a kickback. That's what the Rambam paskins. However, the Rambam paskins like this: that Rashi Yisrael loimer liYisrael acher helachosela b'tein teruma oy bechor oy shor matnois leploini hakohen ben bitu oy ben achoisi kol kayotze bazeh. If a third party, I have a grandson who's a kohen. My daughter marries a kohen. So I'm interested that my grandson should have trumas. Why not? So you're giving trumas anyway. You're giving it to kohen A, kohen B, kohen C. So I give you a little kickback. I give you a little mileage. I give you a little matona. Say, you know what? You're giving your meisters trumas, your bechor. Give it to my grandson. So I want to give it. Oh, I have a good chaver over here. I don't have an enikol as a coin, so better. So I have here a good chaver. You know what? Give your all your bechoros and all your trumas is to Rabbi Kaplan, and maybe I'll give you mileage. I'll give you 2%. I give you a ticket there. It's Yisrael at the end of the year. It's mutter. It's mutter. As long as Rabbi Kaplan doesn't give it back, right? And the moisted. What? That what? Oh, again, that's the same thing. Huh? Then that the oni is not giving it to you. The moist is not giving it to you. Right. It's a different thing. And right. For sure. As long as the oni is not giving you a kickback. Emes, but they're paying not for your kickback. They're paying because they're having business with the. There's a lot of cheshbonos that go in between the moisid and the bank, and between the bank and you. There's a lot of cheshbonos that go here. Right. Oh, that's a separate shaila. I'm not dealing with that. I'm just talking about the kickback that they're giving you a tovas ano mileage. Right, but I don't know if they're paying more for your kickback. They're paying more because this bank has a whole holach. It's not direct. It's not direct from the oni to you. It's not direct from the yeshiva to you. The yeshiva wants to do the business with this credit card. Some yeshivas will tell you, no, we don't use American Express, only Visa. Okay. And other yeshivas will say, we do want to use American Express. It's their cheshbon. It's not just the cheshbon of the kickback to you. There's other cheshbonis of why a vendor wants to use American Express or not. But it's true, Emes. With some credit cards you pay more because they're giving, but it's not direct. Kohen is not giving you, the oni is not giving it to you. Yeah. That's the difference. Sure, you can choose. Every stocker you can choose. That's a separate child. I'm not talking about that now. I'm not saying that. Shalom Shultz.
What's the masana here? That you can't.
Right. So I'm not dealing with that shaila now. That's a separate shaila. I was just asking the shaila if I think that shaila is also lakula. That shaila is also lakula because at the end of the day you gave $100. The moisid, why is the moisid interested in paying the 2% or 3% of the credit card? Because they're guaranteed to get the money. So there's a reason why they're paying it. Now, a ribi shaila is a separate thing. The bank is usually a goyis. It's not a ribi shaila. But the reason the moisid is paying the 2% to the credit card is not to give you back anything. They want to be batuach to get the money. It's like insurance policy. It's not like the old days with a check that like the joke that they said there was a yid, there was an olam ha'elyon, and he was in Gehenim. It was mamish in the worst Gehenim. All of a sudden, whisk him out, they bring him straight up to Gan Eden. 2 minutes later, they schlep him straight back to Gehenim. They said, what happened? They said, there was your yard said your son gave an unbelievable check to yeshiva. So what happened now? The check bounced. So they're paying for the guarantee to get the money. Okay. Lakula on both sides. The Rambam holds that. The Rambam is more machmir. The Rambam holds that there's a machlokes teves ano and other rishonim. So teves ano and moment or not. But I'm not dealing with that shaila right now. There's a separate big lomdish shaila of teves ano is considered moment. But that's not negay over here. Negay only is that the fact that the Rambam holds that even the old teves ano you're not allowed to have and teves ano it ain't a moment. But the fact is that if someone else gave it to you, not the Oni, not the Kohen, not the Levi, that's mutter. That's mutter. So, yeah, I'm allowed to get mileage. And I'm allowed to get mileage. I mean, everyone does it. No one in this room doesn't. Who doesn't pay tuition through a credit card? Because the moistness says, no, you're paying with checks? Yeah, very good. Some moistness, they don't want to deal with checks anymore. They don't want to take checks. They don't want to take checks. Yeah? But yeah, it's not guaranteed. And what happens if it's going to bounce? With the credit card, it could also, you can stop it. Okay. No one goes to Honduras. Okay. We started the third Shaila. We started learning about Iker V'Tofel. And it's a very everything in the summer has been a little bit staggered because we didn't start we're starting Kol Yom Rishon today, and we usually in the summer we do Bechsanem. We're now already Shailos. So I want to put in something about ice cream cones. Ice cream and ice cream cones. It's still in the summer, and no one asked the Shaila. Yeah? So the Shaila is still Nageya. Ganz Yor. Talmud B'Simcha. That's a good thing. Yeah. The Shaila is of Shaila Iker B'Tofel. So I see a lot in the Sforim about the brachas. We talk about cookies and cream also, sandwich cookies. Also, that's I'll talk about this Iker B'Tofel. So and the difference of regular cones and sugar cones. Okay, so there is. Before we start, there is a machlokas hapoiskim who created a cone. There's a machlokas hapoiskim who created a cone. You say, but some story with a vendor in Damascus that was selling ice cream, and he had his glass dishes that he had, and he had his bowl of water. I think about sanitary. Could you imagine? And he was washing, and it was too much. He had 20 dishes. He was washing, serving, and washing. But he couldn't keep up with the demand. And one day he said there was another vendor that was making crepes. So he said, let me order 20 crepes from you. And instead of washing the glasses that day, he just put it in the crepes. And the oil with the slim gehat. So he started making his own crepes, the hard crepes, and from them we give out in cones. Why? And others say, no, it wasn't that vendor in Damascus. It was someone over there and someone over here to say that. I'm waiting for my children to bring me from the Yami magazine next time. They have to tell them they still didn't have about cones. They'll settle the machlokas hapoiskim. But I'm telling you this history because it's Nageya La'aloch. Nageya La'aloch. Also, today, that it's not so much like it used to be, because when you go to an ice cream store, they'll ask you, do you want it in a cone or in a cup? There was a time that plastics didn't exist. And even afterwards, when plastics did exist, plastics were expensive. A cone was cheaper than a plastic cup. But today, it's not that way. A plastic cup that I call is cheaper than a cone. Even in the United States, where Baruch Hashem, flour and stuff are very cheap. But plastic's also very cheap, and styrofoam is even cheaper. It's even cheaper. So they ask you, do you want a cup or a cone? Why am I giving this whole akdam? Because it's nageya. It'll be nageya. Why is it nageya? Because there's a din Shulchan Aruch that any time a person puts a cream on a kikin, on a cracker, and he eats the kadesha lo yatan fayadayim, his hands shouldn't get dirty. So then the cracker becomes tafel. Even though it's a chameshes minei dogan, it's a cracker. Even though it's a cracker, even though it's a piece of bread, it's a moitze lechem min haaretz. But because you really want to eat, and so you don't have a spoon, you don't have a fork. It's kadesha lo yatam fayadayim. You don't want your hands to become metunaf, become dirty, and therefore you're using the piece of bread or the cracker. So you make the bracha on the cream. You make a shahakul niya b'dvara on the bread. But that's the din. So the same thing is with ice cream. If a person only ate the cone in order to have the question, not to how you gonna eat ice cream with your fingers, how you gonna eat ice cream? If that was true, it means 100 years ago when they didn't have plastics, or they had plastic that was expensive, and a person used a cone, that would be a classic din in Shulchan Aruch. That is the din in Shulchan Aruch. Even if you want the taste, is a good shayla. So now is where the music starts a little bit. So first of all, I want to point out, not stama shayla, but this din in Shulchan Aruch is brought twice. Anytime Rambam or Shulchan Aruch says the same din twice, you have to wonder, and it's betzach fa'alomdus. There's no such thing. A Rambam said the same din twice. It happens.
Din of
No, certain din. Sometimes the Rambam writes the same din twice. Once in Hilchos Shabbos, a shofar. This twice. Anytime they'll always ask, why was the same din said twice? Especially if it's only 10 simonim apart. This din that if you use a cracker in order to shaloy tom for your dime is brought in some kuf samaches, it's a mereshet base mamish kemat ois ba'ois mila b'mila, the same thing. I didn't see Acharonim should ask this kasha, but I see that the Alter Rebbe answers the kasha. In Simakuf Samaches, the Shulchan Aruch says, "Oisim rakikim dakim shenoisnim alei makachas and tefilin lagam makachas because of makachas poiterason." That if you have rakikim, these crackers, so you make the brach in the makachas, and that's it. You make only the brachas in the makachas. And the same thing, it says later, the same din in Samaratian base. Makachas shemanichin al rakikim dakim oisim rakikim. Makachas is a cream. Anything that's gekocht, like a relish, it could be, jam. Those days they used to make a lot of mekachas because they didn't have refrigerators and they didn't have preservatives. So they used to be. Then they had the fruit season. They used to a lot of times make fruits with stuff that would preserve the fruits. So they would have the fruits instead of just for a week. They'd have it for a few months, and that was a mekachas. That's what jelly. Where did jelly come from? Today, jelly is another way of eating sugar. It's a hechetimsa. The kids could get sugar into them. But originally, jelly was that right. But originally, jelly was because if it was the kikim oven, so what are you telling me? Shelo yitom for yodayim? You're lying to me because that's what I'm telling you. If a person's telling me that he's eating a kikin oven with a makachas, and he tells me he doesn't want the kikin, he only wants the makachas. I'm telling that person, you're hacking a chinik. Why are you eating a kikin oven if you only want shelo yitom for yodayim? The fact that it's a kikin dakim proves that the only reason you're eating it shelo yitom for yodayim. If it was a thick cracker and you put on some cream on top, you tell me I don't want the cracker. I only want the cream. But why are you eating a thick cracker? Why are you not having a thin cracker? Yeah, so then talking. And emes, if nothing else is available, emes. Emes nachin adover. If nothing else is available, then.
I remember learning the regarding, let's say you're they have the meat, like you said, the meat. You don't want the meat alone.
That's not so common that a person doesn't want the sharpness of the meat. But what is it that a common thing in fancy, not so much in America, but that they have these fancy things, like waiters come out, and they have these even in America they have these, right, hors d'oeuvres. Today in Hamish Chasnas, you don't have it so much anymore. We don't want to waste money. Baruch Hashem, the Olam decided the Dafnish Pater and Geld of Narishkeit. But hors d'oeuvres. It's a little. Yeah. So that's like, so you have like the kikin dakin, and on top of that you have something sweet or something tart, and the kikin is only there shelo yitom for yadayim, because it was a polite way that a polite person is not going to stop eating a piece of meat like this. Pasta. But if you have it on a cracker, es manyet. Right. Mekachas shemanichim al rekikin dakin. Also bread, even if it was really bread. The only thing is, the poets can say that by bread, Shailos says you should never do it with mamish bread, because it's hard to imagine that a person really doesn't want the bread. That's what the Shailos says in Rosh Shulchan Aruch. Everyone brings the Shalom. Right. Mekachas, let me read it inside. Mekachas shemanichim al rekikin dakin. I said rekikin of tefillah mekachas. That the makachas that's on the rekikin is toffel. So you make the bracha on the makachas and you pat the rekikin. So Shulchan Aruch is the same thing twice. Doesn't make sense. Why is he saying same thing twice? And to make it a little worse, the Taz has something to say in each halacha, which is a stira, one to the other. In Simakuf Samaches, the Taz says that even if you're going to separate the makachas from the dough, even if you're going to separate the makachas from the dough, and you can eat first the makachas and then the dough, you make a shahakal on the makachas and the pat is the dough. And the Simon Reshut Beis, he says, no, you got to eat them together. If you can eat separate, you have to make separate brachas. Hello? Sastira. So the Alter Rebbe answers the stira b'oifen niflo. The Mishnah Berurah answers the stira in his way. And there's for them that have a problem with the Mishnah Berurah because he says himself from this simon and that simon. I was once in yeshiva in YU, so I had a Shailos Mishnah Berurah. So I remember someone over there said, "How do you Shailos? What's your Shailos?" He asked him from one simon to the other simon. I remember he said that Mendel Zaks was here and we asked him a Shailos on the Mishnah Berurah. One simon, the other simon, he started laughing. He said, "I wrote this simon and my father-in-law wrote that simon. What's the Shailos?" I don't like that. I don't like that teretz. I don't like that teretz. I'm sorry. But anyway, I don't want to go into much to be miyashiv the Mishnah Berurah, but only to explain what the Mishnah Berurah says and what the Alter Rebbe says. The Alter Rebbe is miyashiv. Alter Rebbe doesn't say as a kasha. Alter Rebbe just in Kuf Samaches is one thing, and you see what the Alter Rebbe is learning. Yeah, but the Alter Rebbe says like this. The Alter Rebbe in Kuf Samaches makes it clear that what's going on over here is that these two things were baked together. The Alter Rebbe I spoke about the Shabbos has this shitta, which is different than all the poskim. Any two things that were cooked or baked together, the Alter Rebbe says becomes kula choda, becomes tafshil echad. Even if you separate them, but they are a din of tafshil echad. They have a din of tafshil echad. He says in Kuf Samaches, it's talking about that they were both baked in the oven together. You took these crackers and you put on top the jelly or whatever it is, the fruits, and you baked it in the oven. You take it out. Now, even if you separate it and you ate first the fruit and then the crackers, you make a boide priyates and then the bichas ikapat is the tofu. But in Reshut Beis, we're talking about they were not cooked together and they were not baked together. So therefore, if you eat them together and you mamish don't want the chita is mamish, it's like the ladabek, litzboya, shedoi tomfa yadayim. It's just like when you have flour in a dish and it's only there to thicken it or it shouldn't to give it color. It's the same thing here. If you're only eating the bread or the cracker, but your hand shouldn't get dirty, so then there's no bracha on it. But if you eat it separately, then you have to make a separate bracha. That's the shit of the Alter Rebbe. In short, how the Alter Rebbe emphasis stira. So therefore, according to the Alter Rebbe, if you should go back to an ice cream. So in Simukuf Samachas, they were baked together. So therefore, even if you separated the merkachas from the rekikin, and you ate first the merkachas, then the rekikin, you make a boide priyates in the merkachas, and then you don't make a mezainas in the rekikin. But in Simon Reshut Beis, the Alter Rebbe says, it's talking about they were not baked together, not cooked together. You just took crackers and you put fruits on it. So if you're eating it, kadei shelo yitom fayadayim, and you're eating it together, so you make our eights, and that goes also under the kikin. But if you can eat it separately, then you have to make a separate brachas, right? Oh, so now they're not made together in the oven. Only deep fried ice cream. Oh, very good. They're made together. Oh, good. So very good. So according to the Alter Rebbe, if you have ice cream in a cone or ice cream in a sandwich, or one more very important nakuda, and we'll get to a little more in the Magen Avraham says, and the Alter Rebbe brings it also Halacha, that in our Medinas, he says that they make these crackers that are with a lot of honey in it. Dufshanin, he calls it. They make these crackers that, he says, you can't tell me that's Chidei Shelo Yitom Fayudayim. It's impossible that it's Shelo Yitom Fayudayim. Therefore, and because it's Chameshes Mini Dogan, so that becomes the Iker. He says that becomes the Iker, and therefore you make a Boide Min Mazoinus, and a pater is the Makachas that's on top of it. A pater is the Makachas that's on top of it. A pater is the Makachas. Because you can't tell me it's just Shelo Yitom Fayudayim. You would have used regular crackers. Because you used honey crackers, because you want. The only reason Chameshes Mini Dogan, you would usually Chameshes Mini Dogan wins the contest. Right. The only time Chameshes Mini Dogan loses if it's mamish, you don't want the dogan. If you want it to give color. Over here you want it to your hand shouldn't get dirty. But the Magen Avraham says that if it was dufshanin, it was honey crackers, so it can't be that you're only eating it kedei shelo yitom fayadayim, your hands shouldn't get dirty. Because otherwise you would have used regular crackers. Now that you're using honey crackers, I'll leave that aside, the cracker and the herring, for a second. So I want to get to the ice cream because I don't want to chas.
All right.
So if we should bring it all together, is like this. And according to the Alter Rebbe, if it's regular crackers, so therefore it depends. If they were cooked together, baked together, so then you always make a bracha on the mekachas. Even if you separated, you took the apples off. You took the apples off the crackers and you made a brei priates, and later you eat the crackers separately. You make still a brei priates on the makachas. In the oven, you put in the oven together. You say 20 seconds will help. I don't know. Yeah, but it says if it was not put together in the oven, so then if your mamish eating it together, kadesh loitam for yadayim. Say that. But if you separated them, you have to make two separate brachas. And if it's dufshanin, if it's honey cookies, so then sugar cones, you see where I'm going. So then you make a bracha on the dufshanin, and that part is the makachas that's on top. Okay. So now, according to the Alter Rebbe, even if they're not baked, even if they're baked, yes, other way. It's a second Mishnah Berurah, because I want to do now first what the Alter Rebbe holds. So, oibazoi. Oh, and one more thing before I get to, I'm sorry that it's this, but I have to. There is a Igris Moshe where he says an eitzah. And I see people, why is he asking? He says that the best eitzah is to break off a piece of the cone and make first beidem min mazonos, and then to make a shahakol on the ice cream. And I think this is so beautiful. This is the best eitzah. Why is this a good eitzah? Why is it a good eitzah? Why is it a good eitzah? I'll tell you what, Moshe doesn't explain much, but I don't know people asking kashas. If you were in Damascus 150 years ago, you say shelo yatam for yadayim. But today, when plastic is cheaper, what are you telling me shelo yatam for yadayim? You like the cone. But on the other hand, you could say, no, maybe it's taka shelo yatam for yadayim. You could argue this way and that way. So therefore, you had an eitzah, break off a piece first of the cone and make first mazonos. Why first? Because if you're ready, going to make a shahakol, it could be really that this is tafel bottle, and you already patted it. So now it's not going to help to make later. It's a bracha batola, bracha shena tzricha. So therefore, the Moshe said, eitzah, when you ever have ice cream in a cone, if you have a sandwich ice cream or anything which is ice cream and mazonos together, unless they're deep fried, which is anders. Moshe wasn't talking in that case. Funny, ice cream is as unhealthy as can be. And oil is as unhealthy as can be. So then it would be different. But since they're not baked together and not cooked together, so you could separate them. And that's why the Moshe had this eitzah. That's why the Moshe, and I think this is the mamish, the best eitzah. Break off a little piece of the cone first. Because if you're going to make first a shahakol, so it's a few Shailos. I'll explain a few Shailos that it could be. Number one, maybe really that you're eating the cone not kedei shelo yiton for yadayim. You're eating the cone because you like the cone, but maybe not. It's a chasofik. So if you broke off a piece of the cone and you made first the mazonos, so again, also lohonas is a bracha. You want to what's the bracha? And now, and now to say that the cone will pater the ice cream, if you break it off separately, you can't say that because you separated it, because it's broken off. Even if it was a sugar cone, the poil they separated them. So therefore, that's the eitzah that Moshe has. It's the best eitzah. So that's what you should do. Huh? No, you should break off a piece. Break off a piece. That's what he says. The best eitzah. No one can disagree with this eitzah. How could you say, unless they were baked together? If says you have a separate cookie in the ice cream store. Okay, if you have, but usually you don't have. You have it. You can't. Huh? Okay, good. So take a little piece. Oh, so now, according to the Alter Rebbe, if you have a sugar cone, l'chayr is dufshinin. And therefore, if you're eating it together, you should make a beidem min mazonos, because it's like a makachas on a dufshinish. Or now, if you want to make a brocha charoina, you have to eat a kazayis b'chdei achilas pras. Most cones, it's not hard, especially a sugar cone should be a kazayis. especially a sugar cone, should be a kazayas. And the best thing is to give the dessert, if it's ice cream, after benching. The Moshe holds that you don't make a shahakal on dessert. Oh, but still, because according to the Moshe, in the Igas Moshe, you shouldn't make a shahakal on ice cream at the end of the meal. I don't think, I would make a shahakal on ice cream at the end of the meal. I don't think the bell does it that way. But, huh? Well, mazonis you can make, but I'm not sure on the regular cone. That's a very complicated. A sugar cone you could make at the end of the meal, but a regular cone is a shailos. You could make at the end of the meal a mazonis on it, and a regular cone, because nish pashat. Yeah. Anyway, you're eating it together, so it's fine. Anyway, the shiloh would be only the kids that open it up and they start licking. That's the shiloh. Oh, you're talking when there's crumbs in the. Oh, that's an andazach. We'll get to that in a second. That's a separate thing. No, that's a separate child. I disagree. I'll tell you why. Because they're not baked or cooked together, and a person could separate them. So it's just like a salad that has fruits and vegetables together. Huh? So it depends. I'm all coming yes. Events with the kram zainen. I'm a kenish kevenish. Huh? That it's kavish kamavushel. I hear. Them. Huh? I don't know. Yeah, then it's a suffix. If it's If it's taka, no. If it's crummies and this, but ketushim zaim zed, then I would say yeah. And the time, yeah. If it's ketushim, then I would have masked. I would agree. Let's go back to the ice cream and the cone. So according to the Alter Rebbe, if you have sugar cones, so then, and you're eating it together, you make a mezainis and gandik. If you have a regular cone, which the cone is shaloya tamfa yadayim, so therefore, if you're eating it together, you make a shahakal. Eat it together, you make a shahakal. But if you finished eating the ice cream and you have a piece of cone, and they were not baked together, you make a bite of minimizainis. Why? Because they were not baked together. And since they were not baked together, so when you're holding it, and you're eating it together, so then the birchas adufshin in part is the gekikin. Huh? Right. And most of the time you're eating the ice cream with the cone. But sometimes it could happen that there's no ice cream left. I couldn't. They put it all on the top. And it's going to be innovating. Because the Alter Rebbe says that if you have the kikin and they were baked together with the dufshinin, even if I ate up all the dufshinin, I'm sorry, the makachas. I have makachas. I ate up all the makachas. So then the bircha the makachat patters the kikin, even if I ate a plain afterwards. But if they were not baked together and I ate the makachas and then I have a little bit of kikin left, I have to make a bite of minimizonis on the kikin dakin. Yeah, a separate bite of minimizonis. If I ate it separate, if I ate it together, the Alter Rebbe says you make one bracha. Let's say shahak. But if I have a kikin dakin left afterwards, I have to make a vitamin mazanis and the kikin. And the ice cream, that's what's happening. I made a shahakal and I ate the ice cream with the cone, but then I'm left with a piece of cone without any ice cream. So if the first half of the cone is a shahakal and the second half of the cone is a mazanis. Yeah, that's what the Alter Rebbe says, that the kikin that you make whatever you ate together with the dufshinin. If it was not baked together or not cooked together, so it becomes bottled to the dufshinin. And whatever you separate, you have to make a separate bracha. One second. So according to the Alter Rebbe, you would make a shahakol, and you can have the cone with it. And then, if you have a piece of cone, you make a separate bracha. The Mishnah Berurah has a different teretz to the whole stira. He says that when we said that you make one bracha is because you ate a little bit together, and even a little bit was left afterwards. Machna shtois. In the Reish Yud Beis, you're talking about when you ate them totally separately. So everything would have to be different according to the Mishnah Berurah, but the time is short. I just want to summarize according to the Alter Rebbe, because I think the Alter Rebbe is negated to us lamaisa. So firstly, the best eitzah, as I said, is the Moshe Weinstein. Take a piece of cone, break it off, take a piece of cookie, make a bita min mazonos. First the mazonos, because otherwise you make first shahakol. You might No, sugar cone, you have to make a mazonos, and then you maybe you would. Shahakol won't go, you're right. And a sugar cone, you don't have to be careful. Right, you can make the shahakol first. Yes, yeah. It only comes first if you want it first. If the two both of the table, but here it's a whole tirchi gonna break, and who knows, the whole ice cream will start falling on one side. So here there is no kedima for the mazonos over the shahakol. They should have to be equal mamashava b'shava. They have to equal mamashava shava. So okay, the Eivusha help that but deep fried it becomes one mitzias. So then if it's shaloy tom for yadayim, you make only a bite of mazonos, and then you'd make shahak, right? The Eivusha help that's a simon toiv, the apple and honey, the cone and the ice cream. I was alham naksivich simon toiva and ashana toiva msuka. No, unless the mazonos is there in order to keep your hands clean. But that's what I think Moshe had a problem, because he thought that these cones today, when plastics are so cheap, why are you eating a cone? No. A regular cone not, but a sugar cone I think you would get a Yishem Adon Bavarach Mat Vadolam.